You're either... Hi there, if you clicked or tapped or scrolled on this video or moved your little controller thing on this video, you either have an essay to do on the city of Ember, or are you extremely bored? Alright, Chapter 1. When the city of Ember was just built and not yet inhabited, the chief builder and the assistant builders, both of them where he sat down to speak of the future. They must not leave the city for at least 200 years, said the chief builder, or perhaps 220. As long as it's that long enough, asked his assistant. It should be. We can't know for sure. And when the time comes, said the assistant, how will they know what to do? We provided them with instructions, of course, the chief builder replied, but who will keep the instructions? Who will we trust to keep them safe and secret? All that time, the mayor of the city will keep the instructions, said the chief builder. We will put them in the box with a time lock set to open the proper date. And will we tell the mayor what's in the box? The assistant asked. No, just that it's the information they won't need and must not see until the box opens of its own accord. So the first mayor will pass the box to the next mayor, and that one to the next, and so down through the years, all of them keeping it secret all the time. What else can we do? Asked the chief builder. Nothing about the elevator in center. There may be no one left in the city by then, or no safe place for them to come back to. So the first mayor of Ember was given the box, told to guard it carefully, and solemnly sworn to told the guards its careful and swollen sword to secretly. When she grew old and her time as mayor passed up, she explained about the box to her successor, who also kept the secret carefully, as did the next mayor. Things went to plan for many years, but the seventh mayor of Ember was horribly then. Sorry. I have a little bit of, I can't read that great. Less noble than the other ones who came before him, and more desperate. He was ill. He had the coughing sickness that was common in the city. Then he and his thought the box might hold a secret that would save his life. He took it from its hiding place in the basement of bathing hall and brought it home with him, where he attacked it with a hammer. But his strength has fallen by then. All the men agreed. All the men managed to do was dent the little before he could return the box to the office hiding place, or tell his successor about it. He died. The box ended up at the back of the closet, shoved behind some old bags and bundles. There it locked unnoticed years after year, until its time arrived, and the lock quickly clicked open. Alright, that's basically just the prologue, but I'm gonna read this chapter anyway. Chapter 1. In the city of Ember, the skies were always dark. The only light came from great flood lamps mounted on the building, and at the top of the poles in the middle of the large square. When the lights were on, they casted a yellowish glow over the streets. People walking by their long shadow and ordered off, and then screeched out again when the last lights were off, as they were between 9th and 6th in the morning. The city was so dark that people might as well have been wearing blindfolds. Sometimes darkness fell in the middle of the day. The city of Ember was old, and everything in it, including the power lines, was in the need of repair. So now and then the lights would flicker and go how these were terrible moments for the people of Ember, as they came to a halt in the middle of the street or stood shocking still in their houses after to move in the under black blackness. They were reminded of something their perfect purified not to think about it, that someday the lights of the city might go out and never come back on. But most of the time life proceeded had gone. Grown people did their work, and younger people, until they reached the age of 12, went to schools. On the last day of their final year, which was called assignment day, they were given jobs to do. The graduating students occupied room 8 of the Ember School of Assignment Day of the 241th one. On the day of the 241th, this classroom, usually noisy first thing in the morning, was completely silent. All 24 students upright and were still at the desk. Oh, speaking of that, I had a very noisy classroom when I was reading this for my book report. Yeah, just thought I should share that. If you are one of the noisy ones, please be quiet. Some of them are like me and want to read the book and actually successfully get a good grade on it. Grown too big for, they were still waiting. The desk was average in 4 rows of. I'll just repeat on assignment day of the year 241. This classroom, usually noisy first thing in the morning, was completely silent. All 24 students upright and still at their desks. They had grown too big. They were waiting. The desks were arranged in 2 rows of 6, one behind the other. In the last row sat a slender girl named Lena Mayfeet. She was wending at the strands of her long dark hair around her fingers, whittling and unwinding it again and again. Sometimes she plucked at a thread of her ragged cape bent over to pull on her socks, which were loose and tended to slide down around her ankles. One of her feet tapped the door softly. In the middle of the row was a boy named Dune Harold. He sat with his shoulders hunched, his eyes squeezed shut, and his hands clapped tightly together. His hands looked rumble as he hadn't come for a while. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna stop reading this. If you'd like to read it, sure. Eyebrows were trade. You know what? Screw it. Alright. You mean I don't have to read it? Yeah. Why? Also, why haven't you introduced the other puppet yet? I don't know. Oh, go do it. How about you just become the mascot? Okay. Great. Alright, put me away. Sorry about that. Just keeping things interesting. Eyebrows which made him look serious at the best of times, and when he was anxious or angry, came together to form a straight line across his forehead. And his brown cruddy jacket was so old that it ragged had gotten out. Both the girls and the boys were making urgent wishes. Don's wish was very specific. 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 I think I have a speech impediment. Specific. He repeated it over and over again, his lips moving slightly as if he could make it come true by saying it 1,000 times. Lynn was making her wish in picture rather than words. In her mind eyes, she saw herself running through the streets of the city in a red jacket. She made the picture as bright and real as she could. Lynn looked up and gazed around the schoolroom. She said a silent goodbye to everything that had been familiar so long. Goodbye to the map of the city of Ember in a scary wood frame at the cabinet, whose shelves had the books and numbers, the books of letters and the books of city of Ember. Goodbye to the cabinet drawer, lead, new paper and old paper. Goodbye to the 3 electric lights in the sill, and that seemed always, no matter where you sat, to cast the shadow of your head over the page you were writing on. And goodbye to the teacher, Miss Thorne, who had finished her last day of school speech, wishing them luck in the lives they were about to begin. Now, having run out of things to say, she was standing at her desk with her fried. So, hey, at one point a teacher is probably watching this. So, yeah, maybe a suggestion for an assignment after reading chapter one. Chapter one, make them choose which job they would have and why. You know, just a suggestion. Collapsed around her shoulders, and still the mayor, the guest of honor, had not arrived. Some foot scraped back and forth on the floor. Miss Thorne sighed. Then the door rattled open, and the mayor walked in. He looked annoyed, as though they were the one who were late. "Welcome, Mayor Coles," said Miss Thorne. She held out her hand to him. The mayor made his mouth into a smile. "Miss Thorne," he said, enfolding his hands. "Greetings. Another year." The mayor was a vast, heavy man, so big in the middle that his arms looked small and dangled in one handle. He held a little cloth bag. He lumbered to go front of the room and face the students. His crazed, dropping face appears to be made of some silver and odorant skin. It rarely moved except for making the smile that was on it now. "Young people of the highest class," the mayor began. He stopped to scan the room for several moments. His eyes seemed to look out from the backs inside his head. He noted slowly, "Assignment day now, isn't it?" "Yeah. Assignment day now, isn't it? First we get our education, then we served our city." Again his eyes moved back and forth along the row of students, and again and nodded, as if someone had confirmed what he said. He put the little bag on Miss Thorne's desk and rested his hand on it. "What will this serve by BA? Perhaps you're wondering." He did smile. "I'd like to know what you do. I'd like to know what you're doing while I'm reading. You know, comment it down. Comment again. Speech impediment. Comment down below what you're doing, and we'll probably read other books. You know, become a book channel. I mean, like, we've run out of ideas. Game and no one watches them. I hope you're enjoying this. Oh, sorry. Sorry. Again, and his heavy cheeks folded like turpentine. Hands were cold. She wrapped her cape around her and pressed her hands between the knees. Please hurry, Mr. Mayor, she said silently. Please just let us choose the and get it over with. Doom in his mind was saying the same thing, only he didn't say please. Something to remember. The mayor hold holding up the one finger. Job, you draw today. If it's for 3 years, then evolution. Job, you draw today. It is for 3 years, then evolution. Are you then evolution? Screw it. Screw it. You probably have a book on hand while you're reading this, so you can pronounce it hopefully. And are you good at your job? Fine. You may keep it. Are you unsatisfactory in there? Is there a great need in elsewhere? You will be reassigned. It is extremely important, he said, jabbing his fingers at the class for all work of amber to be done to his properly done. He picked up the bag and pulled open the drawstrings. So let us begin. Simply proceed. Come up once at a time. Retreat into this bag. They take one slip of paper, read it out loud. He smiled and nodded. The flesh under his chin bulged in and out. Who cares to be first? No one moved. Lynn stared down at the top of her desk. There was a long silence. Then Liz, booked one of Lynn's best friends, springing her to feet. I would like to be first, she said in her breathless, high voice. Good. Walking forward, Liz went to standing before her. The mayor, because of her orange hair, she looked like a bright spark next to him. Now choose, the mayor said, held out the bit. The mayor held. Now choose. The mayor held out the bag with one hand and put the others behind his back, and as if it showed he would not infer. Liz reached into the bag and withdrew it tight. Porter squeezed the paper. She unfolded it carefully. Lynn could see the look on Liz's face, but she could hear the disappointment in her voice as she read out loud, "Supplied, dar, dar, clerk." Very good, said the mayor. A valid job. Lizzie tugged back to her desk. Lynn smiled at her, but Liz made it a sour face. Supplied wasn't a bad job, but it was a dull one. The supplied clerk sat behind a long counter, took orders from the storekeeper of Ember, and sent the chairs down to bring up what was wanted from the vast network of storeroom beneath Ember streets. The storeroom had supplies of each kind: canned food, clothes, furniture, blankets, light bulb, medicine, pots, and pans. Pots and pans. Sorry, I got distracted. Pots and pans. Ready? Reams of paper, soap, more light bulbs, more light bulbs, everything the people of Amber could possibly need. The clerk sat at the ledger books all day, recording the orders that came in and the goods that went out. Liz didn't like to sit. She would have been better suited to do something else. Then thought Messenger, maybe the job Lana wanted for herself. Messenger ran through the city all day, going everywhere, seeing everything. Next, said the mayor. This time 2 people stood up at once. Ori Gordon and the cheat Norman. Norman quickly sat down again, and Jet cheat appropriately, the mayor chose young man, the mayor said. Cheat chose his unfolded. He unfolded his scrap paper. Electricianist helper, he read, and his wide face broke into a smile. Lied, held someone take a quick breath. She looked over to Dome, pressing a hand against his mouth. You never knew each year exactly which jobs would be offered. Some years there were several good jobs, like greenhouse helper, trimmer, assistant, or tree timekeeper, assistant, or messenger, and not bad jobs, and no bad jobs at all. Other years, there's jobs like pipe work, laboratory, trash shifter, and mold scraper were mixed in, but there were always at least one or two jobs for electrician or helper. Fixing the electricity was the most important job of Amber, and most people worked at it than at anything else. Only Gordon was next. She got at and then at anything else. Ori Gordon was next. She got the job of building repairs assistant, which was a good job. She was a strong girl and liked hard work. Chance was made at a greenhouse helper. She gave Len a big grin as she went back to her seat. She got to work with Clary. Lena thought lucky so far. No one had picked a job that had a really bad job. Perhaps this time there would be no bad jobs at all. The idea gave her courage. Besides, she had reached the point where the suspense was giving her a stomach ache. Vida sat down even before the mayor could say next. She stood up and stepped forward. The little bag was made of faded green material gathered at the top of a black string. Lena had a moment. Oh, sorry. The idea gave courage. Besides, she reached the point where the suspense was giving her a stomachache. So, as Vidia sat down, even before the mayor could say next, she stood up and sat forward. The little bag was made of fainted green material gathered at the top with a black string. Lena hesitated a moment, then put her head back. Her hand, then put her hand inside and fingered the bits of paper, feeling as if she was stepping off of a high building. She picked one. She unfolded it. The words were written in black ink in small, careful printing. Pipeworks Laboratory. They said. She stared at them out loud. Please, the mayor said. Pipe out loud. Please, the mayor said. Pipeworks Laboratory, Lena said in a choked whisper. Loud, said the mayor. Pipeworks Laboratory, Lena said again in her voice loud and crackled. There was a sigh of sympathy from the class, keeping her eyes on the floor. Lena went back to her desk and sat down. Pipeworks Laboratory worked below the storms in the deep labyrinths of tunnels. They contained embers, water, and sewer pipes. They spent their days stopping up leaks and replacing pipe joints. It was wet, cold work. It couldn't even be dangerous. A swift underground river ran through the pipeworks, and every now and then someone into the way. Fell into it and was lost. People were lost occasionally in the tunnels too if they strayed too far. Lena started miserably down at the Lena stared miserably down at the letter B. Someone had scratched into the desktop long ago. Almost anything would have been better than Pipeworks Laboratory Greenhouse Helper, and then her second choice, she imagined, was longing the warm air and core and earth smell of the greenhouse, where she could have worked with Clara, the greenhouse manager, someone she knew all her life. She had contained. She would have been contented as a doctor's assistant too, building up cuts and bones, even sweat sweeper, cart puller would have been better. At least then she could have stayed above ground with space and people around her. She thought going down into the pipeworks must be like being buried alive. One by one, the other students chose their jobs. None of them got such wretched jobs as her. Finally, the last person rose from the chair and walked forward. It was Dome. His eyebrows were drawn together in a frown of concentration. His hands, Lance saw were clenched into a fist as he said, Noah reached into the bag and took out the last scrap of paper. He paused a minute, pressing it tightly in his hands. Go on, said the mayor. Read. Unfolding the paper, Don read messenger. He scrawled and crumpled the paper up and dashed it into the floor. Leaning aghast, the whole class rose with surprise. Why would anybody be angry to get that job of messenger? But bad behavior, cried the mayor. His eyes bulged and his face darkened. Go to your seat immediately. Dora kicked the crumpled paper into a corner, and he talked back to the desk and flung himself down. The mayor took a short breath and blinked furiously disgraceful. He said, glancing at Dom. A child is childish display of temper. Students should be glad to work for the city. Ember was prosper if citizens do their best. If all citizens do their best. He held up a stern finger and he said this and moved. He said this and moved his eyes slowly from one face to the next, and suddenly Dome spoke up. But it's not prospering, he cried. Everything is getting worse and worse. Silence, cried the mayor. The blackout cried. Don't he jump from his seat till the lights go out all the time now. In the storage there's shadows of everything. If no one does anything about it, something terrible is going to happen. Lena listened with a pounding heart. What was wrong with Don? Why was he so upset? He was taking things so too seriously, as he always did. Miss Thorne scolded to Dom and put a hand down on his shoulder. Sit down now, she said quietly, but Dom remained standing. The mayor glared for a few moments and said nothing. Then he smiled, showing a neat row of gray teeth. Miss Thorne, he said, who might be this young man be? I'm Don Harold, said Don. I remember you, said the mayor. He gave Don a long look. He turned to the class and smiled. He smiled again. Congratulations to all, he said. Welcome to Ember Workforce. Miss Thorne's class, thank you. The mayor shook hands with Miss Thorne and departed. The students gathered their coats and caps and fell out of the classroom. Lena walked down to White High with Lizzie, who said, poor you. I thought I picked a bad one, but you got the worst. I feel lucky compared to you. Once there were out the door, Lizzie and said goodbye and scurried away, as if Lena's bad luck were a disease. She might catch it. Luna stood on the steps for a moment and gazed across Hankin Square, where people walked basket bound up cozy in their coats and skirted and talked to one another in the pools of light beneath, and said, "Stamp street lamps." A boy in a red messenger jacket ran towards the gathering hall of Orswell Street. A man pulled a car filled with sacks of potatoes, and the building all around the square row of lightning windows, stone bright yellow and deep gold. Lena stared. This was where she wanted to be, up here where everything happened, not down underground. Someone tapped her on the shoulder, shouted. She turned and saw Dome behind her. His thin face looked pale. "Will you trade with me?" he asked. Trade jobs. I don't want to waste my time being a messenger. I want to save the city, not to run around carrying gossip. Lena gasped at him. "You'd rather be in the pipeworks?" Electron's helper. It was is what I wanted," Dome said, "but Chess won't trade. Of course, Pipework is the second best, but why?" "Because the generator is the But why?" "Because the generator is in Pipework," said Dome. Lena knew about the generator. Of course, it's some mystery why it turns the running of the river into power of the city. You could feel it deep rumbled when it stood in Plummer Square. "I need to see the generator," Dome said. I have an idea about it." He thrusted his hands into my pocket, so he said, "Will you trade?" "Yes," cried Len. "And a messenger is the job I want." Most and not a usual job at all, not a useless job in her opinion at all. In her opinion, people couldn't be expected to trudge half across the city every time they wanted to communicate with someone. Messengers connected everyone to everyone. Our messenger just happened to be a perfect for Lena. She loved to run. She could run forever, and she loved exploring every nook and cranny of the city, which was a messenger got to do. "All right," then he said. Don handed her and crumpled piece of paper, which she must have retrieved from the floor. Lena reached into his pocket, pulled out the slip of paper, and handed it to him. "Thank you," he said. "You're welcome," said Lena. Happiness sprung up in her, and happiness always made her want to run. She took the steep 3 at the time that speed down Board Street towards home. That is the end of chapter 1. I'm a slow reader, looks like. I hope you enjoyed it. Mom, if you're watching this, I love you. See you in a few more years. That is the end of this one. I'll see you in the next chapter. Bye.